Welcome to Harcourt Hub.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Harcourt Hub. I'm Claire and I'm your host. For today's episode, I sat down with April Dean, print artist and executive director of the Society of Northern Alberta Print Artists, also known as SNAP Artist Run Centre. Here she is to tell us more about SNAP, her own work, and her thoughts on Edmonton's art scene.
My name is April Dean, and I'm the executive director at SNAP, which is the Society of Northern Alberta Print Artists.
So you're also an artist?
It's true. I am also an artist. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your work?
Oh yeah, sure. My earliest background in visual art is in photography. And so I studied at NAIT. They have a 2-year photographic technology program, which is absolutely not artistic in any way, but it gives you really good skills, like hard skills as a photographer. It's more of a commercially focused program, but I learned a lot. I was very young when I did that program. And then I started university, and so I got into an undergraduate degree a little bit. I started slow and I dabbled and I moved around. But once I got into the studio, that is the visual art studio, and more specifically the printmaking studio, I sort of found out that that was where I needed to be, and that was where I stayed. So printmaking is sort of my most predominant medium. But then I went on to do a master's degree at NASCAD in Halifax, and that MFA program is very open, so not necessarily department or media specific. And so I did a lot of different things in grad school, lots of play with video and installation, and a little bit of sort of electronics and coding, although that didn't really stick. So I would say that my art practice is lens-based in that I always work with a camera in some way, but often those images become layers in prints or installations or videos.
You've been in Kyoto recently? Can you tell us more about what you're doing there?
I haven't gone yet. I'm there in the first 2 weeks of October.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a really great opportunity. Liz Ingram and I have co-curated a big Canada-wide printmaking exhibition that is traveling to Kyoto to be shown at the Municipal Museum of Art. So every 2 years, this group in Kyoto invites a different country to exhibit alongside Japanese artists. And so they invited Canada and invited Liz Ingram to work on this exhibition, and Liz invited me to work with her. So we've been working on this project for, I think it's almost been 2 years. It's been at least a year and a half. And so we have sent 82 prints, contemporary prints, by 45 Canadian artists over to Kyoto, where they will be on exhibition. And then there's opening events and a symposium that myself and Liz and about 20 other Canadian artists are participating in the first 2 weeks of October.
So how did you get started at SNAP?
So I have been involved with SNAP since probably about 2006 or 2007, and I started as a volunteer. I was an undergraduate student in printmaking, and I wanted to connect that to sort of a broader community experience beyond just the university studio. And so through Mark Siegner and lots of other folks who were involved with SNAP at the time, I started volunteering, helping teach classes. Eventually I taught some of my own classes at SNAP. I worked in the studio as an artist after I graduated. And then I also sat on the board of directors from 2008 to 2010, somewhere in that time period. So I have had lots of experience with SNAP, and then I went away to grad school, and then the executive director position became open, and I applied and found myself back in Edmonton in 2012.
So what do you like about being director there?
What do I like about being director there? SNAP is a really special and unique organization in that it's a really healthy, vibrant community of people that come from all different backgrounds and training, but are all sort of assembling around their interest in or excitement for or love of printmaking. It's a really versatile organization. I think because we have the studio and it's a communal shared space and people are sharing resources, sharing ideas, it just really makes for a healthy community. And then I think our gallery and our exhibitions are twofold. I think we're able to share our community and how exciting Snap is and what a great community of artists Edmonton is with artists from all over the world when they come to exhibit at Snap. But then also I think our gallery serves to show Edmonton artists things that are happening in art all over the place.
So how do you balance your job as the director of Snap and being an artist yourself?
I'm terrible at it. So I've been trying to master that balance for the last 4 years. And although I'd like to pretend that it's balance, it's really not. It's like fits and starts. Is that an expression people use? So my practice gets attention when I have a deadline. So when I've committed to something, so an exhibition opportunity or some other commitment as an artist, that is pretty much the only thing that gets me in the studio these days, because my job is demanding and it keeps me busy, for sure. But I have been able to stay quite active as an artist in the last 4 years. So although I'm being a bit hard on myself, I guess I've figured out some system that defies logic. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that's a struggle for a lot of artist-run centers, that it's really hard for a director to maintain their practice?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's twofold, right? The job is really demanding, and then it's also really hard when you are thinking about, talking about, supporting, putting your energy into other people, promoting other people's artistic practice, 35 plus hours a week, to then have any kind of energy left over to do that for your own practice. But I've definitely gotten better at that. There's lots of different types of artists, and some artists are really just interested and invested in their own studio practice, and then there's artists who are equally as excited about what other artists are doing and how other artists are working, and I'm definitely one of those artists. Even through grad school, I was really interested in curatorial work and talking to other people about their practice and helping them flesh out their ideas and maybe articulate better what they're doing. So I come to that quite naturally. It's not forcing it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not so much just a day job so that I can afford to be an artist. It really is something that I'm pretty passionate about.
So like you mentioned, Snap is different from other artist-run centers in Edmonton because it caters specifically to printmakers. Why is it important to have a center dedicated to printmaking?
Well, Snap was founded as in 1982 in the Great West Saddlery building. Snap was founded by a group of artists who just needed to pool their resources together in order to keep making prints. Printmaking is environment heavy, there's a lot of demands, equipment demands, there's a lot of demands for production in printmaking, so you need a lot of you need a lot of expensive things to make prints. There's a lot of tools and equipment that are put to much better use when they're used communally. Most studios all over the world are communal studios. There's certainly lots of artists who have a home studio or have built their own studio that they use. That's not unheard of. But in order to have the ability to work in all different areas of printmaking, because it's so varied, right? There isn't sort of a singular way of making a print. So in order to have the ability to use all of the tools, you almost need a communal studio where everyone is sort of pitching in to make that happen. Otherwise, it's just physically and financially probably not very viable.
Yeah, it definitely as a student at UBC, I took my first print class,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized, like, oh, and when I'm not taking this class and don't have access to the studio, like,
Right.
I just won't be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, the means of production are just like not so easy
Yeah.
to access. So, I mean, I think in some ways, like Snap is incredibly fortunate to exist in a city where people really understand and have a great love for printmaking. But also, I think artists in Edmonton are really fortunate to have access to this really unique resource. There's many cities our size and even bigger who don't have such an exceptional print shop. And certainly there's many community-based studios across Canada, and that's a really exciting thing. There's like at least a dozen. There's probably more. There's at least 12 that are publicly funded right across Canada. So that's a really healthy sign for the art in our country.
How does SNAP contribute to the community of print artists nationally and internationally?
Good question. So there's a couple things that we do that I think reach beyond just the scope of our immediate community in Edmonton. One of our programs is our newsletter print program. So SNAP has been producing what used to be an organizational newsletter. And we, in the last 3 years, with a group of really awesome volunteers, have developed Snapline into a pretty exciting publication. So it's now created around a theme. It has real content, editorial content, great images. It's beautifully offset printed by our season sponsor, McCallum. And so we produce this newsletter, and it gets dispersed throughout Canada and really throughout North America. We send it to other community print shops throughout Canada and the USA. But then we commission an artist every quarter to produce a limited edition of prints. And so we have a group of members called sponsor members, and they receive these prints every quarter. So as a sponsor member, you become a member, you pay $150 annually. So you have like all of the regular benefits of membership, but then you also get a limited edition print by an artist every quarter with the publication. And so through that program, we're reaching artists. We work with local, national, and international artists through that program, and they're creating work that wouldn't have existed otherwise because it's a commission. They're making that work specifically for this program. And then also through our exhibitions program, we try to keep a really good balance in our main gallery between local, national, and international artists in any given season. And I think it's really great exposure for Edmonton to bring artists here. Almost all of our exhibiting artists travel to Edmonton, install their shows, do an artist talk, share their practice and their process with our community.
You have an artist in residence program as well?
Yes, that's a really good point. So we actually have 2 different residency programs now. So one is an emerging artist in residence program, and that's been ongoing for quite a few years now. And so we award 2 or 3 6-month terms or residencies to emerging artists. And so normally, because it's a 6-month residency, they're local artists, but not exclusively. We definitely get applications and interest from emerging artists, other parts of Canada, even other parts of the world that want to come to Edmonton for 6 months in order to have free studio access. So that program has been really great. We've seen really exciting development from emerging artists. And then the residency ends with an exhibition in our community gallery. So there's an exhibition opportunity tied to that residency. And then this year, we just launched an international visiting artist residency. So we have our first international artist here right now. He's a Mexican artist, but he lives in the US, in Texas. He's from San Antonio, and he's been working in the Snap studio for 2 weeks, creating an edition of prints. And then ongoing, there will be an open call and an open application for artists. And although we're calling it an international artist residency, it is completely open to Canadian artists as well. But the idea is some kind of exchange, right? So we're looking for an artist who can bring a way of working, a way of thinking about print, and some processes that might be really interesting, influential for artists working in our studio, so that there's some cross-pollination and exchange of ideas happening in our community and in our studio. And then these artists will be teaching workshops as part of their residency as well, so that Edmonton artists have an opportunity to learn. No exhibition, but lots of sort of meet and greet, open house, social interaction, and lots of opportunity to get to know these artists.
So how does SNAP contribute to Edmonton's art community?
It's hard to have like a clear perception of that from the inside, but I do think we're good collaborators. I think we're really open to collaboration. We don't take our resources, like our physical resources, for granted, and we're really open to sharing them with other organizations that will benefit. So there's lots of groups that we collaborate with throughout the year. The Up and Downtown Music and Art Festival. Often we host creative mornings in our studio. This year we've been working with Boyle Street Community Services. They have a youth entrepreneurship group that has been coming in, learning how to silk screen, so that they can then put their art on t-shirts and other garments and sell them. So there's a lot of skill transfer, but also accommodating groups that want access and want to learn from us.
What do you think is unique about Edmonton's art scene?
You know, I grew up in Edmonton and I went to school in Edmonton, so my sort of like formative art years were here, so it's difficult for me to assess it from an external lens, although I did spend a few years away. So my take, and people would disagree with me, is that there's a real closeness in our community, for better or for worse. And I also find it, as an artist, I find it to be a very supportive place to work. Although I do think we have some work to do around sort of equity and inclusion. I've always had the benefit of feeling quite supported as an artist by my peers. And some of that might come out of the University of Alberta. I think there's some really great people teaching there, and they're not just teaching skills, but they're teaching sort of broader citizenship. So they're teaching people how to collaborate and how to support each other and how to pay opportunities forward, which is an important thing for sure for an emerging artist.
Other artists that we've talked to have mentioned that Edmonton sort of has a lack of critical writing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Snapline is sort of helping to fill a gap?
Yeah, I don't know, like if we have achieved a very critical writing stance yet with Snapline, but it's certainly one of our goals and our aim. I do think that sometimes criticism, like good criticism, so like, and critical analysis is taken as complaining, like those two things are confused, or complaining is taken as being critical, and they're not the same things at all. But I do see a lack of sort of, although I think it's getting better, I think there is some more critical awareness around, and I think these are the kinds of conversations artists should be having, but not just amongst themselves, but openly, right? I think it's really important to be critical of institutions, to be critical of ideas, to be critical of the establishment. Like these are things that can make like really important change for the better, for sure.
How would you like to see Edmonton's art scene grow or change?
Yeah, so that's one of them. I think some critical writing and analysis and awareness. So about the systems that we're all beholden to, but also just on the level of the work that artists are making. You know, there's sort of no greater gift for an emerging artist, or even, you know, I think of my own practice, and having a curator look at your work and see it and talk about it in a way that makes you believe in it, but also helps you to see where you're going, right? Having a curator envision your work in a certain way can be like a really good push as an artist to, you know, get to the next level, whatever that means. Level 2, you've leveled up. That's not really how it works. But to move forward in your practice, right? So I do think Edmonton has a bit of a what's the word? I just think there might be, I don't know that there's a lot of curators in Edmonton who have the time, ability, job description that they're going out and meeting with artists in their studios and talking about what's going on. But I think that's getting better. I think it's improving. I think Christy Trinier at the AGA does a great job of that. I think Todd Janes is really good at that. And Matthew Hills is a new addition to Edmonton's art scene. And he works for U of A Museums, but I think he's a really smart curator and he understands artists. So I think it's getting better, but I think we need more of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, that's all the questions.